paid a little bit more than just a standard clerk. And are these jobs paid by the, I can't remember, by the hour? So they're not
hourly.
Salary.
Right, they are hourly. I think I've been also trying to make sure that I don't cross the line at some point, we're going to have to relook at the clerk of the council position when they do have that supervisory responsibility. Right now, all of these positions report to the chief of staff. And so I think when we are saying the supervision of the clerks, it may not actually be with the senior, it'll be more with the clerk of the council, right? That position has it. And then what I could maybe do is in 10 is kind of restore, it said trains and reviews, but this can have sort of that direct the work of associate and assistant clerks to show that they have some delegated power. But I think the intent with your reorg was to sort of pull that eventually that supervisory responsibility will fall on the clerk of the council. So I wanted this position to be more reflective of being a junior to the clerk of the council.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other feedback? I'm not seeing any other feedback. Thank you for the very good first draft updates on all three of these. As members think about what we learned today, Ms. Murray, what would be the deadline for getting any further feedback to you? I know you're actively working with Human Resources.
So I've sent these to Human Resources to use to start, because they said what they really needed to do is have the job descriptions about 80% right. Okay, so in order to allow them to continue their work, I provided them to them. So if you could have any revisions or changes to me by this Friday, that would be the most helpful, but we do still have time to perfect, even if it's next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm not seeing any other hands on this. Again, thank you for the work, both of you, on updating these. And certainly helps us also in what we said to ourselves, right? Our work to institute our reorganization was going to take some time, and that includes getting updated job descriptions, getting really clear with each other about who does what. This is just another one of those important steps in that work. Is there any other business by members of the Rules and Operations Committee this morning? Not seeing any. Ms. Long or Ms. Murray, any other business for the committee this morning? Seeing no other business before the Rules and Operations Committee, we are adjourned. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this September 12th, 2023 meeting of the Pierce County Council. The time is 3:05 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Campbell.
Here.
Councilmember Hoover.
Here.
Councilmember Denson.
Here.
Councilmember Herrera.
Here.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Here.
Councilmember Morrell.
Here.
And Councilmember Mello.
Here.
There are 7 members present, Mr. Chair.
We have all seven members present and a quorum. Item number 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and our land acknowledgement. Please join us in listening to the land acknowledgement and Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, led by Vice Chair Campbell, followed by a moment of silence dedicated to the victims of the September 11th terrorist attacks and the devastation caused by the earthquake in Morocco last Friday. On September the 11th, 2001, 2,977 lives were lost at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, and thousands more individuals were injured. We will never forget the sacrifices by the first responders who rushed to the scenes of terror and crisis, not from them, and these nearly 3,000 innocent lives lost. We want to also remember the countless lives impacted since then, the families of those lost, and the lives impacted from the health disasters from the responders who responded. On Friday, September 8th, at least 2,900 lives were lost in a 6.8 magnitude earthquake in Morocco, and at least 5,530 lives were injured. An estimated 300,000 people are affected by this natural disaster. Our hearts are heavy with the destruction and loss of life in this natural disaster. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish tribes. Coast Salish people have lived on and stewarded these lands since time immemorial and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land. I would invite all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag in the back of the room. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now at Section 4, Approval of our Agenda. Are there any objections to approving today's agenda as presented? Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. On today's council agenda, there will be multiple opportunities for public comment. There is one final action item, a grant request on the consent agenda that members of the public can provide comment on in the consent agenda. Under Section 8 of the agenda, we will take public comment on the one ordinance on today's agenda. And finally, under community forum, there will be an opportunity to address the council on any topic that is not on today's agenda. We now have the consent agenda before us. Does any member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? Seeing none, Vice Chair Campbell for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Hoover.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
And Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the consent agenda is adopted. That brings us to Section 6, messages from the executive, our judges, and prosecuting attorney. There's one message from the executive transmitting the following ordinance, which was approved and signed on September 5th, 2023, and that was ordinance number 2023-29, which was an ordinance of the County Council amending a chapter related to county funds and abolishing old funds that we don't use anymore and renaming the names of certain funds. Item number 8 is proclamations, recognitions, and awards. We have one recognition and 2 proclamations. And so our first item is recognizing Gomer Roseman, the Director of Site Development for Habitat for Humanity. I would like to invite Gomer Roseman to the podium as we read this recognition into the record. Gomer, welcome.
Thank you.
We're so glad you're here. We also have a fun surprise to be in solidarity with you, Gomer. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to join with me as we read this into the record.
I wish mine was that black.
Well, we can. We'll try to do this without laughing hysterically, but your career is definitely worth celebrating. It's truly inspiring. This is a recognition of the Pierce County Council honoring Gomer Roseman for a lifetime of dedication to affordable housing in Pierce County, Washington. Whereas the strength of a community is determined by the commitment of its individuals to create opportunities for all to thrive, and it is with great honor that we gather today to recognize an exceptional individual who has dedicated his life work to this noble cause. And whereas Gomer Roseman, a distinguished servant of our community, has recently retired from his esteemed position as Director of Site Development for the Tacoma Pierce County Habitat for Humanity, after an illustrious career spanning 17 years, during which he has tirelessly championed the creation of affordable housing solutions. And whereas Gomer Roseman's unwavering devotion to the mission of Tacoma Pierce County Habitat for Humanity has resulted in the realization of 190 new home completions and 20 rehabilitations, amounting to 2/3 of all the homes constructed by the Tacoma affiliate since its inception in 1985. And whereas Gomer Roseman's exceptional vision, design acumen, and unparalleled dedication to the betterment of our community have played a pivotal role in moving ideas from mere concepts to tangible dwellings that stand as testaments to the power of affordable home ownership. And whereas through his tireless efforts, Gomer Roseman has extended the opportunity of affordable home ownership to over 200 deserving families, enabling them to achieve stability and engagement within our communities, thereby breaking down barriers of insufficient wages, historical racial exclusion, and limited generational wealth. And whereas Gomer Roseman's legacy extends beyond his professional prowess, as he has touched the lives of countless individuals through his genuine kindness, mentorship, and nurturing of personal relationships, serving as an inspiration to volunteers and colleagues alike. And whereas Gomer Roseman's influence transcends geographical boundaries, spanning from local neighborhoods like Madison Meadow in South Tacoma to communities in Lakewood, Gig Harbor, Puyallup, and unincorporated Pierce County, leaving a lasting mark on the landscape of affordable housing. And whereas Gomer Roseman's dedication to innovation and sustainability has propelled Tacoma Pierce County Habitat for Humanity to new heights, pioneering the construction of Energy Star certified homes and championing sustainable practices such as the use of insulated concrete forms and the implementation of the organization's first passive house, thereby leaving a lasting legacy of environmental responsibility. And whereas Gomer Roseman's leadership has been instrumental in lining up properties and development plans that will pave the way for the construction and rehabilitation of 120 homes over the next 5 years, ensuring that the legacy of affordable housing continues to thrive and expand. Now, therefore, be it recognized on this 12th day of September 2023 that the Pierce County Council honors Gomer Roseman for his lifetime of dedication to affordable housing, your visionary leadership, and your unwavering commitment to building not only houses, but also hope, stability, and opportunities for our fellow citizens. Gomer, we express our deepest gratitude to you for your remarkable contributions to our community, and we extend our heartfelt wishes for a well-deserved retirement filled with joy, fulfillment, and continued prosperity. Please give him a round of applause. Gomer, before we invite you for some remarks, we'll put these up later after we get a photo from our team with you. But we're going to have to. I see Sharana Kildon from your team there. We're going to have to make sure we verify which photos you release with us holding these to honor Gomer. So you're going to have to get those to our communications shop before we release these photos. But Gomer, please, we welcome you to give us some remarks.
Well, that was those very well written and very well said. Thank you very much. It's, truthfully, it's been my privilege to work with Habitat and be a part of everything that's been done here during the time I've been here. It's really, it's been an amazing ride, and, it's fortunate for me that I worked under a CEO that wasn't afraid to try something new, and we've seen, a lot of growth and a lot of results over the years. So, like I said, it's been my privilege, and just to maybe correct your comments a little bit, I'm not actually retiring. I'm like partially retired now, so I'm still going to work with the affiliate on real estate acquisition and site development. So I'll be involved in a part-time role, and people ask me when I'm going to retire, and I just say, can you retire from a calling? I don't know if that's possible. So I'm sticking in there for now, and we'll see what happens. But I do appreciate the sincere thoughts and all the nice comments. Thank you.
Well, that is good news for Tacoma and Pierce County that we get to keep your expertise alive and well at our affiliate here, helping to create home ownership for many more families. We're glad we don't get to lose that. We certainly wanted to pause and recognize your sure it wasn't just 40 hours a week, your career full-time creating home ownership. So thank you for letting us have an opportunity to
It truly was my
recognize
pleasure,
you.
truly.
Are there other remarks by council members? Well, again, I'm not seeing any other remarks. Gomer, we are going to we are grateful that you've given so much of your career and life and passion to so many families, not just Habitat, but for the countless families that you've created this stability for. It's I think you get to work with the families side by side who provide sweat equity. So I know you got to meet many of the families whose life you've changed forever, and that's such a gift, right? So many people don't get to have that opportunity in their career, in their calling. But you've gotten to provide sweat equity alongside them, meet them, see the lives you're changing, and just what a gift you have been to this community. And so glad that we get to keep your passion and calling going strong. So I'm going to invite you to come on up here. We're going to take a picture with our lookalikes here. Ours is a little blacker than yours, though. Go.
That's right, yeah.
Come all the way up if you don't mind. If you don't mind.
Oh, up there?
Yeah, okay. We'll put you in the middle.
Oh, okay.
You're on your desk.
Okay.
Sharana,
Which way are we going to run?
are we white or black?
Let's go white.
White? Okay, white.
You make me look good then.
All right, so I'm going to get a couple photos and then we'll pause so my partner over here can get some photos too. All right, one more. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, just one more, I promise. Thank you so much.
All right, awesome.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And Gomer, it was the clown of the bunch, the one that likes to have the most fun around here, Councilmember Morell's idea for us to honor you in that way. So you can you can thank or blame him. Thank you for the fun idea, Councilmember Morell. A fun way to honor a remarkable individual in our community. Our first proclamation this afternoon is recognizing September 15th, 2023 as National POW MIA Recognition Day. And I'd like to invite Rick Holland to the podium. Rick, thank you for being with us. As Councilmember Herrera reads the proclamation into the record. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming September 15th, 2023 as National POW MIA Recognition Day. Whereas over the last 100 years, more than 217,000 Americans have been held as prisoners of war, where many were subject to inhumane conditions and cruel treatments by those holding them captive. And whereas to this day, many Americans have not returned home and are still missing in action, including 1,584 from the Vietnam War, 7,531 from the Korean War, 126 from the Cold War, and over 72,304 from World War II. And whereas families and friends of these missing Americans, as well as their fellow veterans, suffer uncertainty concerning their ultimate fate. And whereas, as a nation, we have a duty to continue to make every effort to reconcile the fate of these American service members who paid the ultimate sacrifice and those who are still missing. We must commit to one another that we will not rest until every life is accounted for. And whereas Pierce County proudly flies the POW MIA flag in the county city building to serve as a symbol of remembrance for those who are POW MIAs and to honor their sacrifice. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 12th day of September 2023 by the Pierce County Council that Friday, September 15th, 2023 is National POW MIA Day in Pierce County, Washington. And we ask that all residents join us in honoring and remembering all the POW MIA Americans and their families, because you are not forgotten.
Please give them a round of applause. Rick, thank you for your service. Thank you for being with us. We'd invite you to provide some remarks.
Thank you for inviting me here today. First, I'd like to start. I have two posters here today. One that I would like to present to the council. The other one I'm just here showing it off. The first one is every year the DPAA, the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, puts out a poster for POW MIA Recognition Day. This is this year's poster, and I'd like to present it to the county council today. This poster this year really means a lot to me, and it really strikes home for me because in this poster, this picture here is the POW MIA Chair of Honor. That Chair of Honor is a national program that was started by Rolling Thunder National at a racetrack out on the East Coast. It was a single chair that was cordoned off with a plaque that talked about the over 82,000 Americans that remain missing, and that the chair would be a solemn reminder, remain empty forever, awaiting the return of all the POW MIAs. So I would like to present this to the council today.
Thank you so much. What an honor. Thank you.
The other poster I have is a collaboration between Sons and Daughters in Touch and Mission POW-MIA. Sons and Daughters in Touch is an organization made up of sons and daughters of the missing POWs, MIAs from the Vietnam War, the Gold Star sons and daughters from the MIAs from the Vietnam War. This poster is a picture of all 1,579 MIAs that remain missing and unaccounted for from the Vietnam War. My daddy's picture's right there. I wanted you guys to see this, to put a face to the 1,578 that remain missing. This poster says 1,579, and every year they will change it to the number that it currently is. Right after we made this poster, they identified another one from the Vietnam War, so it's 1,578 right now. Anyway, POW-MIA Recognition Day is a very important day in my life. The reason it's important to me is because I'm the Gold Star son of Tech Sergeant Melvin Holland, missing in action since March 11, 1968 in Laos. I said goodbye to my father on the day of my 8th birthday. The very next morning, him and my mother flew out to Washington, D.C., where they joined 47 other men and their wives to accept a top-secret mission to put a radar site on top of a mile-high mountain in northern Laos, where we weren't supposed to have men, because Laos was a neutral country. So to take the mission, the men were administratively discharged from the Air Force and hired by Lockheed Air Corporation so that they could be officially classified as civilians, and we didn't have any military men there. But by doing that, that also meant those men had no protection. The site went operational November 1st. January 12th, the Vietnamese sent 2 Russian-built AN-2 biplane aircraft, modified to drop mortars out of the bottom, sent them over the site to try to destroy the site. They missed. They hit the helicopter pad a quarter mile away, but they missed. But that was the first indication that they weren't going to let the site stay. And on the evening of March 10th, an all-out assault was made on the site. The men, only protected by a special 30-man Thai forces team and General Vang Pal's Hmong warriors, they were outnumbered. They were outarmed. These were operators and technicians. These were not soldiers. These were not men that were trained to fight. These were not men that were trained in escape and evasion. These were not men trained in perimeter defense. My dad repaired radio. His buddies operated the radar. By the morning of March 11th, when the ambassador finally allowed a rescue attempt to be made, they were able to go in and rescue 5 men from the site. As the helicopter was pulling out, one of those men, Chief Master Sergeant Richard Etchberger, was shot through the bottom of the helicopter and died before they could reach safety. At the time, because of the secrecy of the mission, he could only be awarded the Air Force Cross. From the day of that attack, the way my mom received the notification, usually when there's a casualty, you have a military car pull out front and about 3 or 4 officers in uniform show up at your door, and you know it's not a good sign. Because of the secrecy of this mission, that's not the way it happened for us. in the middle of a Cub Scout meeting one afternoon, my mom receives a phone call. Says, Mrs. Holland, we're calling to let you know something's happened at the site. We're not sure what has happened. We're not sure what the status of the men is. We'll keep you posted. But for now, don't say anything to anyone. Don't forget, you signed those secrecy statements too. You can't talk to anybody. My mom would call every couple weeks if she didn't hear from them, and she'd get the same answer. We'll call you when we know something else. But you have to quit calling and asking questions, and quit calling the other wives. Remember, you signed those secrecy statements. We can throw you in jail. You can lose all your benefits, and your kids will go to orphanages. In 1975, after putting up with those threats for 7 years, and after Richard Nixon went on the TV and told the American public that we had never lost an American serviceman in Laos, my mom decided she had to go all in. We filed a lawsuit against the United States government and Lockheed Air Corporation for $1.6 million apiece. It went through the courts for 8 years before they finally got it tossed out on the statute of limitations. You have to sue the government within 2 years of them lying to you, not within 2 years of finding out they lied to you. But by suing them, we accomplished what we needed and wanted, and that was for them to declassify the mission and start answering the questions. And by suing them in that case, they did declassify that mission. And because of that, and the information that came out because of that, in 2009, Chief Master Sergeant Richard Etchberger's Air Force Cross, his sons were at the White House ceremony on POWMIA Recognition Day in 2009 to accept the Congressional Medal of Honor for their father. Ladies and gentlemen, my family still fights to get my father and the other 11 men that were left on that site, presumed dead. We fight to this day for their return. 55 years we've been fighting for their return. Recently, this last meeting out in D.C. in June, when I was out there for our annual briefing, they told me, we're going back finally. They are going to inspect the site again. They've done drone surveys. They have a 3D model down to the centimeter. They have 7 areas of anomalies that they want to search, that they think will yield results. 4 years ago, when the director told me they were going to go back at the Air Force luncheon out there, I asked him in front of the other families if he would take me with him. He said, Rich, you know we don't take families with us for obvious reasons, but I think in the case of Pupa T, it would benefit us to take you with us. And so he said they would take me with them when they go excavate that site. So someday, in the next year or so, I will get to stand on that mountaintop and ask Pati to give my father and those other men back. It's time to let them come home. This is why POWMIA Recognition Day is important to me, because it gives me the opportunity to tell my father's story so that these men and the other 81,000 Americans that remain missing are not forgotten, because truthfully, they are forgotten by this country, except for the families and close friends and our other comrades and veterans. Most Americans don't know. Most Americans don't know that we have 1,578 still missing from the Vietnam War. Most Americans don't know that we still have 6 missing from the Gulf War and the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Most Americans don't know that in Operation Homecoming in 1972 when 571 American POWs were finally returned. Most Americans don't know that there was over 200 Americans listed as last known alive that were not returned. What happened to them? To this day, the DPAA has whittled that number down to 16. My father and those other men were part of that list. And the way they whittle that list down is they have a fate determination board ruling. And they put their minds together and their information together, and they decide that we got enough information. Those men all died. They're now off the last known alive list. That's how they got the number down to 16. There isn't a family member alive that believes that that's all that number is. So what happened to them? This is why we have to have POWMIA Recognition Day, so that you Americans know this and know that there are families out there like mine that still wait, only we don't wait, that still fight to get my father and those circuit riders home. That's why I do the POWMI Chairs of Honor that I've been getting put in around the state. And on Friday, the third ceremony of the day for me will be at my VFW post, Puyallup Valley 224, where we dedicate our own POWMIA Chair of Honor. I thank you for allowing me the time to talk. I appreciate you listening to my story. I said goodbye to my dad on the day of my 8th birthday. I have a little 8-year-old boy trapped inside my body that will not leave until I bring my father home. That's my life mission. That's what I wake up every day thinking about. That's what I go to bed every night thinking about. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and tell my story. Thank you very much.
Well, Rick, thank you. Your story, while incredibly difficult to hear, is incredibly important to hear. Thank you for your courage and vulnerability in telling your story.
Thank you.
Are there other remarks by council members? Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Rick, thank you for telling your story. It's so important as you are like the spearhead of fighting for everybody. A lot of POWs haven't come home. You bring the human side to all of it. You know, Pierce County is also not alone in this. There's been several who grew up in this town here. I must talk about one that was born here in the Tacoma area, looked at the same commencement base, breathed the same air, saw the same Mount Rainier. He was from World War II. And this guy right here, his name was First Lieutenant Leonard Farron, and he was from the 67th Fighter Squadron. And he was shot down. He was last seen in Guadalcanal. He was shot down on October 15th, 1942. His squadron said that they saw him like 10 minutes before they landed while they're getting strafed or getting anti-aircraft fire. And he never returned home. So that was way back in 1942. What's unique about Lieutenant Farron is that he was a Puyallup tribal member. And he was missing for 73 years. And in 2013, an aircraft crash site was found deep in the jungles of the island of Guadalcanal. And it was consistent with the same area that he was last seen. And then in 2015, the DPAA recovery team excavated the area and recovered his remains, still in the cockpit all those years. His parents died in the late 70s and early 1980s. I had the opportunity to welcome him home with several people of the community, not just the Puyallup tribe, but several people in 2016. and he was buried next to his parents at the Puyallup Travel Cemetery right up here. And I would like to think that Lieutenant Farron probably fought a little bit harder at the Battle of Guadalcanal, because if you know a little bit about history, if we would have lost that battle, the Japanese probably would. Tacoma, Seattle is probably the closest, nearest target of the United States. So he was protecting his hometown, and he fought a little bit harder. And I'd like to say that his sacrifice did not go in vain. And I believe that today. One of the most one of the greatest fear for any human is to be forgotten. And today, recognizing our POW MIAs, having Rick talk about it, and what is printed on that POW MIA flag on the bottom, it says that you are not forgotten. And we're taking the time out here today to remember, and we're remembering today, and we won't stop until everybody's home. So thank you, Rick. Thank you, Council, for recognizing this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Herrera. Other final remarks by other members? Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, sir, for your story, and thank you, Councilmember, for bringing this forward today. I've shared at times when I grew up for about 3 years at a job caretaking of a local cemetery, and so it means I had to always prepare the cemetery for Memorial Day, and there were many veterans who lived in the area, and they would come around and share their stories. And I still sticks with me the story of Carl. I can't remember his last name, but the story sticks with me. He was on board the USS Indianapolis. And for those who may not, and when we talk about the 70,000 missing soldiers from World War II, most of them are in the Pacific theater from ships that were sunk or lost at sea. The Indianapolis is the one got hit by a Japanese torpedo. 900 men went overboard, but it was in shark-infested waters. And he watched as several of his, several of the people he served with were lost to sharks then in the water as they waited rescue. And so that's always stuck with me about how even surviving doesn't, surviving part of it doesn't mean surviving all of it. And to hear those stories growing up really strikes with me how important a day like today is, where we remember all the different ways that the horrors of war can bring not only servicemen and women not returning, but not being found at all. So again, thank you all for sharing your stories. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other final remarks? Councilmember Coover.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to just say thank you for your story. You put a face on humanity that I've faced my own shortcomings, because I try to avoid the emotion that goes with what you're going through, because it's not something I want to do. And you put me in a position of empathy and trying to understand the pain that you're feeling, and I avoid that so I don't have to feel that. Just thank you for your persistence and keeping it in the forefront, because we can't forget. So thank you for your time and being here. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other final remarks? I'm not seeing any others. Thank you, Councilmember Herrera, for making sure that we paused and recognized this September 15th as POW MIA Day, Recognition Day here in Pierce County. I want to make note of a really special moment too here in these chambers. We recently changed our policies here in these council chambers to allow a fourth flag. Typically, the American flag, the Pierce County flag, and the Washington State flag fly prominently in the back of these council chambers. And there's usually not a fourth flag. We've allowed the allowance for a fourth flag at ceremonial times at the council's discretion, and really pleased to let the community know that this is the very first time we're actually exercising that opportunity to place a fourth flag alongside the American flag and the state of Washington flag and the Pierce County flag. And as we can see here, it is the POW-MIA flag. So, so pleased that we are doing that simple honor and recognition. Mr. Holland, thank you for the gift. It is a very generous gesture of yours to us. We are very humbled by your gift, and we will treasure it and appreciate it and display it appropriately. Thank you again for not only what you shared today, but I'm certain what you do in your community service to this community to share these stories about these servicemen and women who are not forgotten. And I'm certain that you spend so much of your life's journey and time talking to anybody who will listen so that these folks will not be forgotten. Thank you for giving of your passion and your time to do that. With that, Mr. Holland, we would welcome you up here to take a photo for us to commemorate this day. Thank you, sir. Well, our final proclamation is proclaiming September 15th through October 15th, 2023 as Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month here in Pierce County. And I would like to invite up an all-star lineup of very important people to the podium to help receive this proclamation, including Bernal Baca, Executive Director of Mi Centro, Marcos Juanles from the Latino Chamber of Commerce, Mia Espinoza from the Center for Latino Leadership, and State Representative Alex Ibarra. Representative Ibarra, thank you for being with us. I'm certain you're probably joined by others, and if you want to come behind our friends here, we would very much welcome you. Thank you all for being with us, and I'd like to call on Councilmember Herrera to read this proclamation into the record. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas according to the 2020 U.S. Census, Hispanics and Latino Americans represent the second largest ethnic group in the United States with more than 62 million residents, including more than 111,000 residents living throughout Pierce County. And whereas a Hispanic and Latino community has helped build and strengthen our society for generations at every level in government, science, business, culture, sports, education, and the arts. And whereas Hispanics and Latino Americans of Pierce County form small businesses and community organizations rooted in century-old traditions, customs, and ways of life, such as Mi Centro in Tacoma's Hilltop neighborhood that has served the Hispanic and Latino community since 1983 and has brought cultural awareness, arts, education, and community services to Pierce County. And whereas Washington State has seen an increase in Hispanic and Latino representation at all levels of government, including the creation of the first ever Latino caucus in the Washington State legislation this year. And whereas on September 15th, 1821, 5 countries, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, El Salvador, and Nicaragua declared their independence, and the nations of Mexico, Chile, Belize celebrate their independence on September 16th, 18th, and 21st, respectively. And whereas President Lyndon B. Johnson administration initiated the observation of Hispanic Heritage Week in 1968, and 20 years later it became a federal law in 1988, designating the month of September 15th to October 15th to be the national recognized as Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of citizens whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And whereas Hispanic and Latino Americans represent a significant and fast-growing demographic in Pierce County, making up more than 12% of all residents. And we honor the invaluable ways that contribute to our county as friends, family members, teachers, elected officials, essential workers, co-workers, and much more. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 12th day of September 2023 by the Pierce County Council that September 15th through October 15th, 2023 is Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month in Pierce County, Washington. And all residents are encouraged to join this special observance by seeking out celebrations, educational programs, and community activities to learn more about the role of Hispanic and Latino Americans have played in our nation's history.
Let's give them a round of applause. Dr. Baca, how about we start with you? I know you have some of those community celebrations that you are helping to lead.
Yeah, I'm just kind of overwhelmed every year by doing this because, we're Latino Hispanic for 365 days a year, and having 1 month to carve that out and recognize us, I guess we need to be very appreciative of that. And what happened today, though, reminded me of a big city with a small town heart. And I saw that in Tacoma. What you just did a few moments ago by honoring the folks ahead of us really made me feel proud to be a member of this city of Tacoma. To see the people doing Habitat is incredible work that they're doing in Tacoma. Hear this gentleman's story about his POW/MIA. If you ever came to my office, I have an American flag that my Uncle Billy came home from Korea 16 years later, and we have his dog tags in his teeth and that flag, and that's in my office. That flies in my office. So as you can see, as I present about the Latino community, we're very diverse. We've been here for a long time. We just didn't arrive. We've been here for a long time. We've served in every war. My father served in World War I. So it's, the border crossed me. I didn't cross the border. And I defended every one of you in some way. So I like to know that I am an American, but I never have lost my culture and my community and my heart. And what you see behind me is that representative group. There's people behind us that serve in all capacities of life here in the city of Tacoma and Washington State. And as the proclamation says, it's very clear, in Tacoma, we're the second largest ethnic group, 11.3%. And I know it's just numbers, but it means a lot to us because when Mi Centro got started a few years ago and just was a small organization trying to reach into the community, we realized that there were so many facets of the community that we want to cover. And some of those facets are, again, mentioned in this proclamation because we have a tremendous amount to add to the art community. And in September the 16th, we're going to have Cheech Marin come to the city of Tacoma. He's got the only Chicano art museum in the United States in Riverside, California. He's going to come up here to do some work with us at the Tacoma Art Museum. He'll be coming to our art gallery, Alfredo Araguin, and you're all invited to that. It's from what I understood from yesterday. I just flew in from Denver. I guess he did sell out, so you might have to call and get a reservation. I'm not sure how all that works, but he'll be at the TAB, so we brought him here. I think it's also important to recognize that education is very important to our community, and through our center, we are offering civic education courses to our students. And Adan, one of our members back here, is our instructor in those courses, and we're trying to teach people how to do what you're doing. You know, one of my staff members a little while ago asked me, how does this work in Pierce County? What do these folks really do? And, you know, that's quite an education to explain what you folks do to our community, because it's not always understandable how the American system works. You know, we have state, local, county, U.S., federal, you know, all these terms, and people have to learn those. And again, being a citizen, I get it, you know, so I know how to do this stuff, but a lot of our people don't know this, so we're trying to teach that. And so that is another component. And I'd like to introduce to you Marcos Wanless, because Marcos and I met a few months ago and said, you know what this county and city of Tacoma needs? They need a chamber of commerce. And I like the idea because we were working because of Pierce County. You folks gave us money to help incubator programs for small businesses. Well, hell, we found 525 small businesses, Latino businesses. We serve 325 of those. And so I'm really proud, because if it wasn't for the Pierce County offering money to help these people, we would have never met that community. And now they're a vibrant part of our community. We're teaching them how to be businesses. And so I partnered with this gentleman, Marcos, to start the Tacoma Latino Chamber of Commerce. And it's going to be housed at Mi Centro. So that's a first. So we're celebrating that today. Marcos.
Absolutely. Gracias.
Yeah, gracias.
Gracias por eso.
Go ahead.
Thank you, and my deepest respects and condolences for the loss of lives. I also have a great-great-grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel John Wanless, who served under General Grant, funny enough. And thank you, and my respects to all you council members. It's great to be here with you. I have to thank, and I cannot thank enough, Dr. Bernal Vaca for his vision regarding the projection of the opportunity to have fertile ground for small businesses, especially people of color, especially Latino-focused businesses. Today, the Latinos, which we have a beautiful representation here today, are the largest growing force in the United States. Latino women count for the #1 openers of new businesses of anybody, white and people of color. These are all SBA figures, not mine. But we still have a long way to go. We only have 11% on the House of Representatives of elected Latino officials, when we have 19% of the population. We only have 1% of federal contracts going to Latino organizations, again, when we have 19% of the population. We only have 6% of CEOs in this country heading the corporations, when the white minority has 76%. So we have a long way to be together, and diversity is great for our country. And I say our country very proudly, because I am an American, and diversity only will make us richer. And that's what we come here to do, because in America it's about business, right? But we love the food, but the food is business. We love sports, but sports are business, and everything is business. So today, thanks to Dr. Vaca, you will see us knocking on your door more frequently than not for opportunities to grow the Latino arena and the Latino economy in Pierce County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wanless. Thank you for being with us. Ms. Espinoza.
Thank you. So, hold on.
Yeah.
Stop here. Thank you, Councilmember Herrera. My name is Maya Espinoza. I'm the founder and executive director of the Center for Latino Leadership. We're a civic engagement nonprofit proudly operating out of Pierce County. And our mission is to demystify the political process and improve Latino representation across Washington state, like we've seen in Representative Alex Ibarra out of Quincy and Nikki Torres, the 15th Legislative District Senator. As the daughter of a Peruvian immigrant father and a Mexican-American mother, I'm thankful to the first and only Latino council member out of Pierce County for bringing this proclamation forward. My parents actually met in the military, and I was born on a military base, and you may not know or realize that Latinos are overrepresented in our military, and I think today has kind of demonstrated some of that for us. So I'm thankful to Paul, thankful to Rick as well. Thank you for sharing your story and for your personal sacrifice as well. As a daughter of 2 military parents, I know that family sacrifice that goes along with it quite well. We are proud to recognize the contributions and continuous growth of the Latino community across not only Pierce County, but the United States. We are excited to celebrate the values that we bring to this country, which include faith, family, and prosperity for all. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Espinoza. Representative Ibarra, thank you so much for being with us. We know how busy you are as well.
No, move it up here. Well, thanks for the invitation. Thank you, Councilman Herrera, for having me. So we'll just tell you a little bit of story. So where did my family come from? And the story is not so much about my family, about Hispanics across that came mostly from Mexico, but down south of the border. And back in 1930s and 20s, my great-grandfather, Roberto, came from Doctor Arroyo, Nuevo León, which is the state of Nuevo León in Mexico. He brought my grandfather and his 2 brothers to the United States. They migrated and were migrant workers in Texas. In a couple months, they moved to California for a couple months, and then Oregon, Idaho, Washington, and Granger, Washington. And then they moved on to Chicago, Illinois. And I had no idea they went to Chicago, and I'll tell a quick story. My brothers were watching baseball one time, watching the Yankees, and we were talking about Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig because we were big baseball fans. And my dad said, well, your grandfathers watched Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. I'm going, what are you talking about, Dad? He's going, when we were migrant workers, we'd stop in Chicago, and your grandfather would go watch the Yankees play with the Cubs and saw Babe Ruth and all those folks. So Hispanics get around, is what I'm probably saying. And that was all in 1 year. Okay, that was 1 year, and they did it for years and years. And then later, as time went on, my grandfather and his 2 brothers, one went to Walla Walla, one went to Quincy, and one went to stayed in Granger. And from that family, my uncle, who was in Granger, became the first Hispanic mayor in the state of Washington. My grandfather moved to Quincy. I'm one of the products of him, obviously. I was a school board member in Quincy for 9 years, became a state legislator in 2019, and not only just serve Hispanic constituents in my district, but all constituents, no matter the color, no matter where they come from, because the story I'm telling you is not so much the Ibarra story. It's the American story, because it was my grandfather. It might have been your grandfather or your great uncle who came from Ireland or who came from England or who came from Russia. It's the American dream. And so we're living it, a living example of what can happen if we work hard, put our nose to the grindstone, and keep working at it, because we know we can do it. We're part of this community, and we always have been. And we're very proud to be Americans. We've got these wonderful veterans, my dad included, and my uncles who went to war and gave us an opportunity to have Hispanics be where they're at now. And again, like one of the members said a little bit ago, we have a long ways to go, but I think we're going in the right direction. And it's folks like you that give us an opportunity and this proclamation to make that happen. So thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation to be here.
Thank you so much. There's also, Dr. Baca, before I open up for further remarks, there's not only the celebration you talked about at Mi Central and at Tacoma Art Museum, but there's also a celebration of cultures at Tacoma Arts Live. Is your team aware to share that information, or we can make sure we share that out. I think there's lots of Hispanic, Latino Heritage Month activities going on.
There's a film happening. There's a lot of celebrations that are around. There's a Katrina special, cultural things. So yes, there's going to be a lot of things to celebrate.
Yes.
And we'll make sure we help get the word out about all these different community celebrations.
Our arts director's not here, so.
She's actually down at the town.
She's busy getting ready for the art exhibit at Tacoma Art Museum, but that is exciting.
There's one more that you're all invited to. We are hosting the official launch of the Tacoma Latino Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce serving Pierce County. We are officially launching it at Mi Centro the 27th of October. So we're going to stretch the Latino heritage.
There you go.
And we'll be there, and I hope to see you there, especially Paul, because we have this Latino thing. Immediately I see a Latino and I say, hey, man. So, but of course, everybody's super invited, and I would definitely like to see you there and greet you there with Dr.
Please make sure our offices get an invitation. Are there final remarks by council members? Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. I do want to take a moment of, I guess, not personal privilege because it's very public, but to thank Dr. Baca and their staff. For those on the council may remember, we had been looking to do something around the Latinx community and domestic violence. And Dr. Baca and his team had been thinking about how do we work on that. And they said, well, let's bring everybody together and talk about it, like, frankly, we have legal, law enforcement, advocates, and then other communities of color. How do we help in this space in a way that's authentic and really gets at some of the intersections between racism and violence? And they pulled it off in a couple months, and it was fabulous, and they're all jazzed to do something again next year, but it would not have happened had not it been the perseverance of Dr. Baca and his team. So on this day here in public in front of everybody, I thought it was a great time to do a shout out to them and looking forward to the next one. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Hitchin, for highlighting that. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. It's been an honor to bring this proclamation forward for obvious reasons, but I am really excited about the collaboration between Mi Centro and your program, bringing a Latino Chamber of Commerce to this area. I think it's really important. I can only imagine even existing business owners not taking advantage of some of the ARPA funds that came up during the really tough times for businesses and how they might have missed out on that due to one thing or another. And this being possibly, an avenue for people to have some trust, some networking and things like that. I'm very excited for that for the future. So that's great to think outside the box. But the main statement I want to say today that Latino history is American history. Latinos have always been in this country. They were here before this country became a country, and we're Americans through and through. And and we're very diverse. I mean, even amongst our own communities, there's diversity within Hispanic. There's a big difference between Puerto Ricans and people from Mexico and Peru, and there's all kinds of different things. But all that together, some of the things that make them similar is that they're known for their hard work ethic and their strong family ties. And Latinos have also gifted the United States with their unparalleled culinary food. Yeah, so I mean that's good stuff. So I mean, no one can complain about the food that came out of that.
Start a fight here.
See, look, there's fights already many times. But there's a lot of things that unite us together, and it's good to highlight all the successes that we're having and all the work that we have to do to move forward. And I'm proud. So thank you for all being here and talking. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you all for being here as well today. And I very much appreciate the stories that you had to tell. And what it reminded me of or made me do a woulda, shoulda, coulda was interviewing my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents before they're gone in order to have that tie. I really, the baseball, how fun to have that knowledge. And it's too late for me to get some of those stories. My grandpa was the mayor of my hometown back when, and I should have, interviewed him, gotten the stories. So I could encourage anyone to share the greatness that you all have, that would be that. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Cruver. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for sharing with us coming out. In the time I've been on Tacoma City Council and here in County Council, I've represented the east side of Tacoma that has a large Hispanic population. Eye-opening to me was the first time I ran for office and came along doorbelling and got to an entire apartment complex and no one was registered to vote. Finally, after talking with someone there, I understood that most everyone there was unable to register to vote. And that really sparked with me that how do we bridge that gap? How do we close that? Turns out I have several apartment buildings that are much in the same way. And I also understood many of the challenges. So that really put me on a path of how do I bring more engagement. Included, fast forward a few years later, I hosted a pair of Latino town halls. And when you talk about the different languages, trying to set that up, I didn't know what I was getting into. Still not quite sure what all. And at one point we were trying to find 7 different translators to do 7 different dialects. Eventually we had to pare that back. And I remember going through the whole process, and I insist on this, it was led in Spanish, and I had to listen through a translator on my ear. And that was, an incredible learning environment for myself to put myself right here in Tacoma going through that. And just what we were able to come out of that with building connections and work going forward, more engagement was incredible. I think to the community center we built on the east side and the artwork of Mercutio Rubiliano outside the Phoenix that is out there that is so inspired by Hispanic culture. That's the first thing you see when you drive up. Because the Hispanic culture is so much part of the east side. Or one of the first big events he had, I had a chance to walk with Maya around the block, led as a parade celebration of Hispanic community. And I walked into that main room there to see it all decorated up, and it was the first time I'd seen it, and tears just started to flow because that's what we were missing. And the Hispanic culture just brought it that day to the east side of Tacoma. And thank you to Mia Central for during, and Councilmember Morrell, remember this, during CARES Act, before we had the ARPA funds, we had the CARES Act fund, which moved very quick and fast. And we're like, we have money for small businesses and restaurants, and we don't know who they are. Can you help us get the money out to them? And we turned to partners like Mia Centro to help us get money out to businesses all over the county. Because we wanted to make sure that when the pandemic was over, they were still there. That was important. And that helped build the work that we've done through the ARPA fund with the BIPOC Center that now is leading to that. So please do not take that as us taking any credit for what you guys are doing. We want to thank you for putting it in action because it could have easily just gone unclaimed or unused. I'll end with one fact that I learned while putting together a town hall in Washington State. This was about a decade ago. Hispanic Latino was about 12%, I think, of the state population, 19% of our entrepreneurs. People do not come to the land of opportunity to not seek opportunity. And so we know we need to be investing in our businesses and our people and our cultures and our arts. And we thank you so much for being here and helping us to celebrate and honor this and center it today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. It's my honor to close our remarks today before we invite you up here for a photo by truly celebrating you. All of you thanked us for this simple but important recognition. Truly, it's our honor to invest in your work. It's our gratitude to you, as has been shared many times, the work you do every day to involve people in civic life and help build industry and commerce and help celebrate culture and invest in business. You all are doing the work. You all allow us to modestly invest in your work, but you allow us to deliver the work, whether it be in culturally competent domestic violence work or culturally competent business incubation, whatever it is, you allow us to make it culturally competent. And so without you, we truly could not succeed. So thank you for what you do in all your different ways, and we look forward to celebrating, and we know the many, many different ways throughout the month of September 15th through October 15th. It's really different. It's not September, it's October. It's September 15th through October 15th. So we're going to take advantage of all those opportunities, and later into October we'll have even more. So please join us up here and receive your proclamation as you put them. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank
Representative.
you.
Yep. Nice
Thank
meeting you.
you.
Absolutely.
Great. Oh, we each get one?
Thank you
very much.
Thanks for the nice comments.
For the comments.
I didn't know that about entrepreneurs.
This means a lot.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, I know.
Double check the numbers.
We gotta-
Decades old numbers, but it's,
Trust but verify. Oh, we
we
should
might need,
sit down
well, we
this
might
way?
need to kind of.
Shimmy?
We're going to shift that way just a little bit.
But Maya, you snuck out. You want me to go that way?
You can
Make it
probably
even?
Why don't you stand in the middle there?
Okay. There we go. Go back with my buddy.
This is trouble.
Wonderful, thank you.
Perfect.
That'll be in the chamber newsletter.
All right, 1, 2, 3. You get one more. 1, 2, 3. Hold.
Oh, jeez.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
What
All right, muy bien.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work. Yes, there was so much resources.
Chamber invite you out to the 27th, October launch.
A lot of Latino businesses sometimes say, oh,
Thanks for doing this.
I told them, I applied to the PPP when we were in the middle of the pandemic, and they said, no, because we don't have payroll. I thought you don't have to. You'll be honored to, you know, 30 businesses like that. I was able to put it.
We helped some people file like 3 years of taxes so they could qualify.
Which, yeah, everything goes, huh? Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you.
Well, tell the speaker you were in town.
Yes, please do.
On your turn.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You will. Venga. Thank you. I'll come up the front, please.
Dogs on your ties or llamas? Kind of look like llamas.
It's my Dalmatian. Hi.
Well, thank you again to our many guests. We're going to continue on with a final action item that is on our agenda. Again, thank you for all the opportunities we had to celebrate and recognize today. We are at Section 8, Ordinances, and we now have proposal number 2023-28 before us. I'd like to call on Councilmember Hitchin for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move 2023-28.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt ordinance number 2023-28. Madam Clerk, will you please read the title into the record?
Proposal number 2023-28, an ordinance of the Pierce County Council relating to pet shops, regulating the sale of dogs and cats, amending Chapter 524 of the Pierce County Code, kennel cattery, grooming parlor, short-term boarding facility, or pet shop by amending Sections 524.30, license requirement, 524.75.
Last line.
Last line is findings of fact.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cox to brief the council.
Yes, Chair Mello, members of the council, Jeff Cox, council staff. I'd like to start off by just acknowledging that Casey Call, program manager with the auditor's office, is with us online on Zoom, as is Cord O'Connor with the prosecutor's office. The Pierce County Code 524-100 allows for the suspension or revocation of pet shop licenses where the county determines that the pet shop is being operated in violation of the code, Chapter 5, Pierce County Code, Chapter 5. There is a single pet shop licensee in Pierce County, and the county is barred from issuing more licenses. The auditor, under our code, may suspend or revoke any license issued under Title V of the code upon a determination that there are sufficient grounds for the suspension or revocation. Any failure or refusal on the part of the licensee to obey any rule, regulation, or request of the auditor or their agent or the sheriff or their agent shall be grounds for the revocation of a license. License holders may appeal an adverse decision to the county hearing examiner. Pierce County Code Chapter 524 imposes 1, dog sale limitations, 2, record-keeping requirements, and 3, regulates dog sale advertisements. That can be found at Pierce County Code 524, 075, 078, and 080. During this last legislative session, the legislature adopted Gross Substitute House Bill 1424. This concerns a number of things having to do with the sale of dogs, and it concerns consumer protection with respect to the sale and adoption of dogs and cats, and was adopted during this session, as I just mentioned, and became effective July 23rd of this year. The measure has the following provisions. A retail pet store licensee, hereinafter a pet shop, it may be interchangeably used, may sell or offer for sale a dog only if the following conditions are met. First, with regards to business addresses, the dog must be sold or offered for sale only at the address identified on a pet shop's business license. With regards to the source of a dog sold or offered for sale must be obtained either directly from breeders that meet the requirements of Washington's breeding laws or to United States Department of Agriculture licensed brokers who obtain dogs from breeders who meet Washington's breeding laws. With regards to documentation, dogs must possess documentation demonstrating the dog was not separated from its mother prior to the age of 8 weeks, along with breeder compliance with Washington's relevant laws on the date the dog was obtained from the breeder. Further, pet shops must obtain all USDA inspection reports for the breeder within the previous 3 years, if applicable, and maintain, upon request, and produce records for a period of 5 years following the sale of a dog. With regards to advertising, pet shops must include on advertisements offering to sell a dog the range of prices at which a dog, breed of dog, or dogs having other distinguishing traits are offered for sale, the age of the dog, and supporting documentation. Pet shops must post the dog's purchase price, age, and the breeder's name, kennel name, city and state, and applicable state or federal license numbers. With regards to disclosure, pet shops must disclose to a prospective consumer in writing prior to a sale the dog's purchase price, applicable federal or state license numbers, and an unredacted list of all violations of any federal or state law the dog breeder received in the previous 2 years on a federal or state inspection report. And then for pet shops that provide space and care for adoptable animals owned by animal care and control agencies or animal rescue groups, the retail pet store must display for each dog or cat a label stating the name and address of the animal care and control agency or animal rescue group. Now, a pet shop violating the above requirements is subject to a civil infraction of $250, and a pet shop that has more than 3 violations in a 1-year period is prohibited from selling or offering to sell any dog. Further, a person is prohibited from having more than 50 intact dogs over the age of 6 months at any time for breeding purposes, and any consumer lease, retail installment transaction, or consumer loan for the purchase of a dog is void and unenforceable. In other words, the store can't be essentially financing the sale of the dog or offering you financing for the sale of the dog. Now, the statute that we're discussing here in Gross Substitute House Bill 1424 duplicates and or imposes greater restrictions on the sale of dogs than did many of the amendments to Pierce County Chapter 5 that were added last year. So what this legislation does, just to be really clear, is we are bringing we are bringing the statutory changes that occurred in 2021 and 2023 we're updating our code to make it consistent with that, so that we're really just enforcing the state law through our code. And I want to be clear, we're not innovating, we're enforcing the state law through the code and making it consistent. And the reason I mentioned 2021 is that's when cat sales were banned, so that's also included. This is auditor request legislation. The Public Safety Committee heard it on August 14th and gave it a due pass recommendation. And with that, like I noted before, we've got Casey Call, who is program manager with the auditor's office, available online. You'll recall, many of you were in the Public Safety Committee hearing where this was considered, and she gave her presentation. And I think both she or Court would be willing to answer questions. That's my understanding. I'm, of course, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. We did have a presentation in committee and a lengthy debate in committee. Casey or Court, do you have anything to add before we open this up for questions or comments by council members?
I have nothing to add at this time.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being with us and available to answer questions. Are there questions or comments by council members before we open this up for a public hearing? Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. Something that just occurred to me in thought, in that here we are dealing with just, cats and dogs, domestic pets. Is this something that can be carried over into the livestock arena?
Is that directed to Casey?
Casey or Court? In the sense I'm seeing, in Ireland, I believe they're going to be ordering or trying to order the slaughter of cows because they don't like them for various reasons. And I'm wondering if this can be misconstrued or a step towards that kind of control of sales. It's kind of a long stretch on that, but it just is a concern.
Casey, would you mind responding, or Court?
I believe it's USDA that has jurisdiction over livestock. As far as our county regulations go, I don't know that we have regulations regarding livestock.
Okay. Well, if I might just add in that, that we're following state, and state can make choices in the future if this might be kind of a catalyst in that line of thought in the future. If we're controlling animals here, could we not transfer that idea down the road for other animals?
The bill in front of us does not speak to livestock other than cats or dogs.
Correct.
So to make a supposition about other species, I think you have to come to your own. I don't think it's fair to put the staff on the line to suppose what the legislature might do for other species, with all due respect.
No, I understand that. I just thought I would ask in the sense of the authority being used here for that type of purpose. I didn't think it was that far of a stretch, but just a concern. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Vice Chair Campbell.
My reading of this, and I was just checking, while we don't have a definition, it is very clear. It says dogs and cats, and dogs and dog or cat, dogs. So it would be, I don't see any legal room for any other livestock, even any other pet other than a dog or cat, to be constrained under this. There's a lot of controlling language in what it does control.
Mr. O'Connor, do you agree with that reading?
Well, I'm Cord O'Connor from the Pierce County Prosecutor's Office. I think Councilmember Krueger is asking an interesting question. It's something that we may want to think about in the future. Currently, the Auditor's Office only licenses and regulates certain businesses. In this case, there is code provision for the licensing and regulation of pet stores. We don't currently have regulations addressing livestock sales. I'm not entirely familiar with the state law governing those transactions. But again, it's an interesting issue and maybe something that's worth studying in the future.
Thank you for those thoughts. Any other questions or comments? Casey, let's hear from you directly. The Auditor's Office does not intend to implement this, making this harmony, bringing this local law in harmony with state law. You do not anticipate applying this to species other than dogs and cats. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we open this up for a public hearing? Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify, I was of the understanding that it is strictly dogs and cats at this point, but my contention was that we're doing that for this now. What's to stop it from expanding? That was my question. I understand it's not the auditor, it's not, the other things are not at issue here. So just to clarify that point, I was looking to the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. This is a public hearing on proposal 2023-28. Any member of the public wishing to provide comment, we'll invite you to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to make your remarks. Is there anyone in chambers? Not seeing anyone. Mr. Weinsberry, anybody in the Zoom room wishing to provide comment?
For any members of the public wishing to provide comment on proposal number 2023-28, press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. At this time, I have one hand up, Chair. Please state your name for the record.
Dawn?
Dawn McGinnis.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I'm wondering about, when I go into a pet store or a feed store, I see bunny rabbits, I see chicks, I see reptiles too. Is any of that going to start to be regulated? Because a lot of people will buy these things and then turn them loose. Snakes, turtles, lizards, birds. So I do agree with Ms. Coover that you're starting with dogs and cats, but why are you just, I think that does need to be addressed as well.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no other hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. Are there final remarks by council members? Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Seems like a long time ago, but when this first came forward, the council passed legislation that regulated the sales of dogs in Pierce County, and it took kind of a lift to get it there, to find a path, and it worked for our community and it worked for the business. The state took it upon themselves to continue to try and fine-tune that and use several of the things that we had negotiated and put in place in hopes that businesses that are able to meet these requirements can humanely sell animals to our community that want to buy dogs in this pathway. And so the legislation that the state is adopting, I think, makes a lot of sense. It's somewhat inspired by some of the legislation that we passed here in Pierce County. I think they make it a little cleaner. We had a lot of different levels to our legislation that made it a little more confusing. So I think that this will work well. I know it's a challenge for the one and only business in Pierce County, but they found a way to work with the system that was laid in front of them, and I know they've continued to figure out how to work with them. So I'm very supportive of this and appreciative of the auditor and the prosecuting attorney's office on getting this put together so that we could be in line with the state. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Burrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Councilmember Hitchens said, this is not new to this council, and we went through quite a lengthy process, as Mr. Cox is aware of, to just get where we were as a county, because the challenge that I had is we were singling out pretty much one business. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, every community had a pet shop that you could go to. I remember taking my kids down and getting a puppy or a cat, or yes, we got the occasional turtle. You know, it was joyous times for us to be able to do that. Now, there are no pet shops, community pet shops out there anymore because they've been regulated to the point where they can't be in business. This was another case of a lobby group going down to the state and saying, we want more than what Pierce County did. And to me, it's the heavy hand of government coming down on an industry that, you know, maybe had some bad apples in it. But for me, as an entrepreneur, to be able to watch the erosion through heavy regulation on a business is just, I can't agree with that. And I agree with Councilmember Krueger. Who's next? What business that the state decides they don't like anymore are they going to come after? And so for that, I will not be supporting this. And I understand that we are just following what the state has passed, but I think the principle of it is that regulating businesses to the point, to the brink of extinction within a certain industry is wrong, and I just do not agree with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair Mello. For my final, I'll agree at the point of this is aligning us with the state, and with this particular one I'm okay with, but I just want to agree with Councilmember Morale on his comments on this. And this is such an emotional issue because I too am an animal lover, and I don't go to pet stores. I don't go to the pound because it's too overwhelming. I end up with strays. And then as I was driving just last weekend, I'm passing, you know, a minivan with the gate open, you know, lab pups. And I know that, you know, in my neighborhood, you know, within the surrounding vicinity, there was an accident and lots of puppies. And I was reading in the paper last year, 51,000 were euthanized. And I don't know that this is a solution going off, you know, picking on a business that was legitimate, that has a responsibility. Granted, there may be avenues in the background in the past with some animal pet stores, you know, historically in the state and the country. I get that, but I'm concerned with the government getting involved in things that just because it doesn't like it and it's a heart bender. I get it, but it's just at this point I'll agree with the alignment, but I hope we don't see these kinds of things again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Krueger. Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I actually worked at a pet store when I was in my early 20s. It was a second job for me, and I didn't realize taking the job how heartbreaking it would be. I thought, how fun! I'll work at this pet store. It'll be, you know, so great to see the puppies, and you know, and they were sweet and they were adorable. But I cannot tell you the number of times we had customers come back in tears because their puppies had passed away, like within a week or two of being purchased. These puppies were definitely from puppy mills. You know, I learned all about that. Our warranties on these animals, which doesn't seem right, but they were just complete garbage. Predatory lending was rampant, and I know that one of the provisions of the state law deals with that. I mean, ridiculous interest rates, because these families would come in with their kids, and of course their kids are falling in love with these puppies, and parents will do anything to make their kids happy, and it was just unfortunate all around. So I believe that the ordinance that you all passed last year and the state law, I mean, it's not about punishing businesses. It's about protecting these animals and doing what's right for our individuals and our families and our consumers throughout the community. So I would encourage everyone to vote in favor of this. I'm certainly in support of this, and I thank you for all of your work you did last year on the ordinance, and I thank our legislators at the state level for continuing to tweak it and make it something that's good for animals statewide. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final remarks? Not seeing any. I want to thank Councilmembers Hitchin and Denson for working on this. Councilmember Hitchin in particular has been working in this issue area for some time. I appreciate the ability to bring our local law into harmony with the state law and appropriately ensure animal welfare in this regard. With that, I'd like to ask the clerk to please call the roll on 2023-28.
Thank you. Councilmember Morrell?
No.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger?
Aye.
Councilmember Denson?
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera?
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin?
Aye.
And Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 6 ayes and 1 nay.
On a vote of 6 ayes and 1 nay, the ordinance is adopted. There are no resolutions on today's agenda. That brings us to Section 10, Community Forum. Community Forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any topic that did not appear on today's agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit. We ask you to state your name if you would like it on the record and to address all comments to the chair. I'll start with those in chambers. Is there anyone in chambers wishing to provide input in Community Forum? I'm not seeing any. We'll now move to the Zoom room. Mr. Weinsbury.
For any member of the public wishing to provide public comment, press the raise hand icon in the Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And please state your name for the record. At this time, we have one hand raised. Don, please state your name for the record.
My name is Dawn McGinnis.
Thank you, Don. Please proceed.
Okay, so what I'd like to talk about is a couple of different things. Right now, Parkland, Washington, where I live, is rated a D plus. A crime occurs out here every 3 hours and 53 minutes. My home is 300% more likely to be robbed if I don't have an alarm system, and that's put out by crimegraves.org. If you want to verify that. And to follow up on that, we've had a couple of armed robberies, some thefts, a dead body, people jumping off the streets and attacking cars out here, naked people using people's hoses to bathe. And yesterday I was in your one of your meetings, the crime stats meeting or whatever yesterday, and I noticed that you guys have all the protection you guys need when you go to the meetings. If you have a problem there, you guys got a panic button that you guys got on your computers or your cell phones. So you guys are really protected, but we're not out here. And the poor lieutenant that was in there yesterday talking, you guys kind of blew off what was really causing the problems. And they're not able to enforce the laws, the policies out here. And that's what's huge, is that drug addicts, criminals are able to come in stores and steal anything and then jump in a car and steal your car and then all balls to the wherever they're going, and that's what causes the accidents, not the wide roads, not the zero visibility that you guys are trying to bring in. It's not enforcing it, allowing people to be drunk, high on whatever, and then blowing around here with cars that are dilapidated and putting everybody at risk because we don't have policies where our police officers can pursue or arrest, and if they do arrest, they have to release. So we're just not safe out here. And I'm just wondering when you guys are going to do something about our safety, because I see why you guys aren't worried, because you guys got all the safety in the world around you guys protecting you. And I also have another, a little bit of a gripe here, how you guys brought up the 9/11 and Morocco, but you didn't mention anything about Hawaii's devastation, and that was very disappointing to me, is that they're really going through a lot, and I think that needs some recognition too. And what are we as a community going to do to help them? And also, when you guys we're talking about like what causes people in the accidents. It's not that people are necessarily on their cell phones. It's that people are higher under the influence and shouldn't be behind the wheel. So we need to start working on protecting people out here. Every day I see people blowing by me in the middle lane, running red lights, going around me, blowing by in the morning when I watch the kids standing out there trying to catch the bus, and there's nobody doing any traffic enforcement because nobody wants to be a police officer. But yet people are going up and down the street 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone or a 20-mile-an-hour zone.
Thank you.
I thought I had 3 minutes.
Thank you very much.
At this time, we have no other hands, Chair.
Seeing no other hands, we'll close the community forum portion of the meeting, and I'll just note a few things. I certainly hear the frustration from the constituent. I want to note that I'm sorry, Ms. McGinnis, that you missed the previous 2 meetings where we dedicated our moment of silence for 2 weeks in a row to the massive devastation of the Maui wildfires, and have put out information about how members of the Tacoma Pierce County community can help those who are devastated from the wildfires in Maui, and we'll continue to help as much as we can. And I know I get updates regularly from my family who lives in Hawaii. And we've hear the concerns about public safety. We stay very close. All of our laws are in alignment with state law about what our police can and cannot do as it relates to high-speed chases and other things that we heard you share. Yesterday in our Public Safety Committee meeting, we got a presentation about new technology that our Sheriff's Department has deployed that helps track cars that might be speeding away. And that was just one of many updates we have of tools that we give our law enforcement here locally that we've resourced to make sure that our law enforcement has all the tools necessary to operate within the confines of the state law. And we will continue to do so. We take the public safety of our community incredibly seriously, and absolutely will continue to do so. That does close our community forum portion of our meeting. We are now at section 11, other business and announcements. Are there any other business or announcements by council members? Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair, and I just wanted to I mentioned it at study session, but just thank everyone who came out for the Blue Zones kickoff that we had out at LeMay Marymount. It was very well attended. A lot of great ideas came out of it, and I think it's actually going to have a very good effect in the Parkland Spanaway area. Thank you, Councilmember Kruger, for joining me there. It was a fun event, and I appreciate everyone who was able to make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other business by members? Not seeing any. Ms. Long, is there any other business by staff today? Well, seeing no further business before the Pierce County Council, this meeting is adjourned.